3 signs you can't handle yourself. Let's break this down into 3 categories of a self-defense situation: your emotional game, your mental game, and your physical game. You have to be able to handle all of these aspects to prevail in a fight. And these are the most common areas where most people fall short in their own self-defense ability, including me. They get sucked into ego battles. So keep watching. Number 1, your emotional game, how you react. Now, you can't handle yourself if you're easily triggered. Someone's got to say it. Everybody at some level will be triggered by something. One of my triggers is when people get in my face and start swearing at me. Now, I know some people think fighting on anger is a good thing because it makes you stronger, harder, tougher, but it also makes you much more reckless. And reckless is dangerous because you can make the wrong decisions. In fact, you don't make any decisions at all, because what you do is you act in an irrational way. And in that sense, a person can lack self-control. In fact, they can be even more impulsive in their behavior. Now, being impulsive is dangerous. So when you combine being easily triggered with being angry and then impulsive, you have a dangerous cocktail within an individual. And that person, quite frankly, can't handle themselves. Now, selection in a lot of our military services requires identifying the psychological profile of the individual, how easily that person's triggered. When people are in a combative role, it's important to identify or develop a profile of that person's psychology, how calm they are in their mind. If you're in a combative situation, you don't want to be reckless or impulsive. Knowing what your triggers are will help you. And everybody has that button that when you press, they'll go into a rage. Of course, the fix is to identify what your personal triggers are. Come to terms with it. Try to make it not an issue that will lead you into an ego battle. Try to rationalize other people's behavior. The second, the mental game, how you think. Another sign that I found that I couldn't handle myself was taking things personally. When people used to do things, I used to think it was against me. And that's often not the case. People are agents of their own behavior. They live in their own worlds. You can't handle yourself if you take things personally. And this is what the vast majority of people do, especially in arguments with strangers. And all of these perceptions tend to escalate conflicts into fights. Full-blown fist fights. The problem is we always frame people's behavior from our own perspective. So that guy that's driving fast down the road, you rationalize him as him being just a road rage idiot. But you don't know if he's driving at high speed or even recklessly because he's trying to get his sick baby to the hospital. There could be many reasons or a context to someone's behavior. So sometimes it's not worth taking things personally. And that applies to everything that we do in our life. Sometimes someone's behavior isn't against you. It might just be a fact that they're an idiot and that's how they behave, or there might be a rational reason behind it. Either way, you can't handle yourself if you're going to ego battle with people. Pride, arrogance, and ego are things that will pull you down, but that also leads to a weakness in your game. The third, now you can't handle yourself if you don't have a physical game. Now, if I said to you, you can't handle yourself, the first thing you're always going to think of is your physical game. How well you can fight, how strong you are, how technical you are, what you can do. But the reality is, if you don't have any emotional control or mental capability, it doesn't matter how physically tough that you are. Now, the biggest problem that most people have is that they always work on what they're good at and not what they're bad at, because their ego won't allow them to work on their weaknesses. And that's why most people have 2 or 3 techniques that they're pretty good at, and that's their go-to every time they fight. The problem is that's a self-limiting behavior. If you only work on what you're good at and you never build on your weaknesses will far outweigh your strengths. So the fix has to be work on your weaknesses, avoid your strengths, and this means that you'll be able to handle yourself whenever the situation changes. So what's the takeaway? Fighting is a holistic practice. It's not just physical, it's mental and emotional as well. Lack of mental toughness is a sign that you can't handle yourself. Quite often you'll see young fighters that they'll give up when they get tired. First thing to go is their mind. If you don't have any emotional control or mental capability, it doesn't matter how physically tough that you are. But yes, all of these factors are important. How fit you are, how well you can endure are important. Over and above that, it's your mindset. Can you go into deep waters when you have to? Mental toughness is the deciding factor of whether you can really handle yourself. Well, if you want to portray an image of someone not to be messed with, then you have to be confident within yourself. And total confidence can only be achieved in 3 domains: your physical, emotional, obviously your mental game. And this means you'll avoid ego battles, but most importantly, if you have to fight, you're fighting for a real reason without distraction. And you can't handle yourself if you're easily triggered, take things personally, and you can't fight. Thanks for watching.